Chapter 6. The Battle Begins. Gary jumped out of his chair. "Let's go find Kokosho." The orderly peered over at Gary. "Gary, is everything okay? I must go to war." Gary jumped out of his chair, grabbing his walker. I was surprised how nimble he got out of his chair. We started up the stairs to the second-floor dormitories when we heard a screaming, bumping, and fighting in the washroom. Anatano mu san wo watsuku. We only know one person with that voice. We pushed open the double doors. Kokosho was butt naked, being scrubbed by orderlies. "Kokosho, please hold still. You must have rolled around in dog shit." One of the orderlies screamed, pleading with him to calm down. "Kokosho no detsu," I screamed. Kokosho immediately calmed, hearing a friendly voice. "They scrub my balls. No like. It's okay, my friend, we have bigger problems on our hands." Gary and I left the washroom. We sat on a small set of benches outside. Kokosho finally emerged, looking like a dog just cleaned by its groomers. Kokosho's long black hair dangled down over his face. "Come, Kokosho, get dressed. We must go to war." Kokosho followed Gary and I to the meeting room. It was quiet there, and we could make our plan of attack. We walked into the room and sat down. "Gary, what do you know about this enemy?" I asked, with an excited but inquisitive face. Gary's face turned as serious as a person who'd witnessed a murder. He crept forward and lowered his voice. "Are you sure you want to know about this?" he asked in a dire voice. Me and Kokosho nodded at each other. "We're ready." Gary says, "I'll start from the beginning. Many millennia there were two gods who ruled over this world. One god of darkness and one god of light." "What were their names?" Kokosho asked. "They didn't have names," said Gary. "They were beings of pure energy. The gods hated each other and wanted to kill one another, but they couldn't. Constant battle ensued, and the deities were locked into a constant struggle for power. Crashing into each other for thousands of years, the deities came to an agreement. They would create man, a creature designed in their image. Just like the deities, man had both light and darkness inside of them. Among some of these people, the deities created magical beings such as my grandmother Marin, but they also created others with not as much light inside of them. One of them is hell-bent on destroying this world and returning our society to darkness." "Who is he?" I asked. "His name is Chainer." "Chainer, Dementia Master." Chapter 7. Of Darkness and Light. Gary, Kokosho, and I sat and spoke for hours. "So where is Chainer now?" I asked. "Well, wherever he is, he's close to his minions." "Minions?" Kokosho asked. "Yes, they were once like you and I, but under his curse, afflicted by dementia." "How cruel," I whispered under my breath. "How do we find him?" I asked. "Well," Gary leaned in and whispered, "we won't find him. He'll find us. We must always be on our toes from now on. We must all stay close to one another as well. I'll request that we all stay in the same room." "Agreed." We looked in each other's eyes in triumph. We are a team now. We all shook hands and headed to the administration office to switch to a bigger room. The team got to the bottom of the second floor when we noticed everybody was loading into a white bus. The orderly said, "Come on, you three. We're going to the mall today." We all enjoyed walking the mall and concluded our quest could wait until later that evening. We grabbed our belongings. Kokosho grabbed his sword, Gary with his walker, and I with my baseball bat. We had ridden the bus before many times, but this time was different. It felt like I was back on the bus to Nam. We all sat in the back of the bus to stay close to one another. We all had a feeling that today wouldn't be our normal mall walk day. We finally arrived at the mall, a large cement-colored building with many stores inside. We got off the bus. The mall parking lot was almost completely empty, due to the upcoming snowstorm forecasted for this evening. The air had an oddly bitter chill to it, and the autumn-colored leaves rolled through the empty parking lot. We entered the mall as our white bus sped off. The orderlies had no interest in following us around, so everyone split up except us three. We found a recently opened pretzel place, so we decided to try it out. The man behind the counter, clearly desperate for customers. "You should try our new pizza pretzel," he asked with a car salesman's grin. "Sure, why not?" I gave the American Express card over. "Dang ol' fuckin'," he said as he took my card. We were taken back for a moment. "Poor guy must have Tourette syndrome," Dangle, dangle, fucking, he said over and over again, loading our food into a bag. Chapter 7. Chainer, Dementia Master. We enjoyed our meal on the lounge chairs, joking and smiling with one another. We were talking about the good old days. I was mid-sentence when I looked over at Gary. His eyes, his face, it looked like his very soul had fled from his body. "Gary, are you okay?" He didn't say a word. Instead, he lifted his arm up like the Grim Reaper. He pointed straight down to the other side of the mall. It was an older woman, confused, bumbling, but with an angry look on her face. "What, it's just an old lady," Kokosho said. "That's no ordinary old lady." Gary could barely force the words from his mouth. "That is a minion." We looked closer as the old woman began to walk in erratic movements, and with a growling, mumbling thrust, she knocked over a center-placed garbage can. "She's incredibly strong. For an old woman," Kokosho said. "Yes, Chainer is close. Get ready for a fight, lads." "It's time for action." Gary then unlatched his customized walker, latching and unlatching until it resembled a staff. As we stood up, the zenith scroll began to hum and glow a shocking green color. We got into a fighting position, and when we did, the minion locked eyes with us and began to charge. Monstrous and inhuman, she got on all four legs and started sprinting at us like rabies-infected dog. So afraid I lunged back and tripped. Landing on my back, the woman had reached us. Snarling and growling like a beast, she jumped on top of me and started ripping at my arms and clothing. It was at that time the very few people in the mall had fled in fear, running for their lives from this monster. The beast had put me into a prone position when out of the corner of my eye, Gary and Kokosho in unison smashing and slashing the monster into submission, screaming in a guttural beastly undertone, then whimpering and running wildly through a store to escape the barrage of attacks, knocking everything over in the store. "It escaped," I said, panting and weakened. "I'm getting too old for this," sighed Gary. The zenith scroll stopped its humming. What the hell was that? Popping out of a corner was a group of elderly patients locked together in fear. Alongside them was the concerned and scared orderly, ushering us to follow her to safety. She got on the walkie to the bus driver. We ran out of the now completely deserted mall and got onto the speeding white bus as fast as we could back to safety. Chapter 8. Knowing defeat. Today we were defeated. Sore, bloody, and outmatched, we sat in the back of the bus, the other old people helpless and afraid. "We failed today, didn't we?" Kokosho said in a solemn tone. "Yes," Gary said in a short, straightforward voice. I didn't say anything, almost like slow motion, watching the grief and fear of the elderly people. Then it came to me. We must speak to Marin. She will know what we're up against, and maybe have some answers for us. We can't defeat one of these creatures, let alone an onslaught of them. The rest of the ride back to the home, I didn't say much, just looked out the window in helplessness. Wounded, broken,